writhing like snakes in fire. Steve dropped heavily onto the stairs, gasping for breath, clutching his bleeding chest. Emily collapsed beside him, her whole body trembling. "I told you, I'm not leaving you." But their relief lasted only seconds. The flare of light from the shard faded quickly, and the creature beyond the breach roared. The house convulsed as if alive, beams cracking, walls bending inward. The chanting rose louder. The door is open. The feast begins. The stairwell shifted, steps melting into black sludge beneath them. Emily grabbed Steve, pulling him to his feet, but the floor dissolved under their shoes, clinging to their legs like tar. Every step was agony, a fight against the house itself. Suddenly, a thunderous crash split the night. Part of the roof tore away, and moonlight spilled into the room. But it was not the moon they knew. The sky outside was wrong. Too vast. Too close. The stars twisted like burning eyes, all fixed on the house. And in the distance, towering silhouettes moved slowly across the horizon. Shapes so large and inhuman, they made the creature in the breach seem small. Steve's voice was barely a whisper. "We didn't just open a door in the house. Emily," his eyes shone with horror, "we opened a door to them." The shadows surged again, sweeping down the walls in waves, clutching at their arms and legs. Emily screamed as one wrapped around her neck, pulling her upward. Her shard slipped from her fingers, clattering uselessly to the floor below. Steve, bleeding and broken, stumbled forward and seized a splintered beam from the collapsing stairs. With a ragged cry, he swung it wildly at the shadows holding Emily. The wood cracked, useless against the dark, but his defiance gave her just enough time to rip free. They fell together, tumbling down what remained of the staircase, crashing hard onto the lower floor. Dust and rot exploded around them. Emily lay on her back, chest heaving, staring at the ceiling. The hole above was widening. The creature's clawed hand reached further through, scraping deep furrows into the floor. It wasn't going to stop. Steve coughed violently, blood staining his lips, and whispered, "We can't fight this, Emily. The only way to close it is from the inside." Emily turned her head toward him, her eyes widening in horror. "No, no, don't you dare say that." But Steve's gaze was steady, even through the fear. "It wants me. It already marked me. If I go back in, maybe I can shut it." Emily shook her head frantically, clutching his hand. "If you go in, you won't come back." His lips twisted into a weak, broken smile. "Neither will it." The voice in the black window. The floor shuddered beneath them as the creature forced its way farther through the breach. Its hand, pale and skeletal, groped blindly, its claws scraping beams and floorboards to splinters. The chanting thundered in their skulls, shaking the air itself. One by one, Emily clutched Steve's bloodied hand, shaking her head violently. "No, don't say that. There has to be another way. We can find it. We can." Steve's eyes, dim with exhaustion but burning with a strange calm, met hers. "Emily, I don't have time. You don't have time. Look at me." He pointed to the black veins crawling up his neck, seeping from the wounds where the shadows had wrapped around him. They pulsed faintly, like roots feeding on his blood. "It's already inside me." Emily's heart clenched. She wanted to deny it, scream at him, drag him out into the night. But she could see it, the creature's marks spreading through him like poison. His breath came shallow, his skin paling by the second. Tears blurred her vision. "No, Steve, please. I can't lose you too. Not like Kaitlyn. Not like John." Steve gripped her shoulders, his hands trembling but firm. "You'll lose everything if we don't stop it. Look at the sky, Emily." She turned, and her stomach lurched. Through the gaping hole, the world outside was gone. The forest, the town, the stars she once knew, all swallowed. In their place stretched a nightmarish horizon, an endless wasteland of shadow. And moving across it, towering forms, giants of bone and darkness, dragged themselves closer with movements too slow, too deliberate, as if savoring their approach. "They're coming," Steve whispered. "Not just for us. For everything." Emily's sob caught her throat. Then we fight together. Both of us. Until the end. But Steve only shook his head. You're strong, Emily. Stronger than you know. That's why it hasn't taken you yet. You can carry this story out. You can warn people. Me. He glanced at the spreading black across his chest. I'm already theirs. The house groaned violently, beams snapping as the breach widened. The creature's massive head pushed farther in, its lantern sockets glowing with hunger. The voices rose to a deafening roar. The feast begins. The feast begins. Steve pressed something into Emily's hand, one last shard of the mirror, still faintly glowing with its strange power. When I go in, use this. Drive it into the breach. Seal it before it pulls you with me. Emily's tears fell freely now. Her voice broke. I can't let you go. Steve's smile was weak, but it was real. You already saved me once. Now let me save you. The shadows surged down again, snatching at them both. Steve didn't fight them this time. He let the darkness coil around his arms, his waist dragging him toward the opening. His eyes never left hers. Emily, his voice was steady, almost gentle. Run when it's done. No! She lunged forward, clutching his arm, refusing to let go. Her nails dug deep, blood mingling with his. If you go, I go. But his grip, weak as it was, pried hers free. His last words cut through the chaos like a blade. You have to live. The shadows yanked him upward. Steve's body was dragged into the gaping maw of the breach. His scream was swallowed instantly, vanishing into the abyss. Emily fell to her knees, the glowing shard clutched tight in her shaking hand. The breach pulsed, a wave of power slamming through the room as the creature surged forward, dragging Steve deeper inside. Her heart shattered, but his final plea echoed in her ears. With a cry that tore her throat raw, Emily hurled herself forward, driving the shard straight into the bleeding heart of the breach. Light erupted, blinding and violent. The house screamed, the walls twisting and collapsing, the shadows thrashing in agony. The chanting fractured into a million broken voices before silencing all at once. The breach began to close, folding inward, swallowing itself. Emily was thrown back, crashing hard against the floor. When the light finally faded, the black window was gone. The house was silent, but Steve was gone too. The voice in the black window. For a long time, Emily lay motionless on the floor, her body aching, her ears ringing from the explosion of light. The silence in the house was so complete it felt wrong, like the pause before a storm. Her chest heaved with shallow, ragged breaths. She forced her eyes open. The breach was gone. The wall where the black window had once loomed was nothing but cracked wood and broken plaster. No pulsing glow. No whispers. No shadows creeping across the floor. Steve was gone. Her trembling hands groped the floor until her fingers brushed against the shard she had driven into the breach. It was blackened now, dead, its faint glow extinguished. She pulled it close to her chest, clutching it as though it were his last heartbeat. For a moment, the crushing silence brought her relief. Maybe it was over. Maybe Steve had been right. His sacrifice had sealed it. But then, from the corner of the room, she heard something. A breath. Slow, steady, and too close. Her stomach clenched. She pushed herself up, every bone in her body screaming in protest, and turned her head. The air felt thick again, pressing against her lungs. In the shattered remains of the stairwell, the shadows lingered, faint but still there. And from those shadows, a figure was watching her. Emily froze. At first, she thought it was Steve. The shape was familiar. Broad shoulders, the same broken posture of a man who had fought too long. For a heartbeat, her heart leapt. Maybe he had escaped. Maybe. The figure stepped forward into the dim moonlight, and her hope turned to ash. It was Steve, and it wasn't. His face was pale, stretched too thin, his blackened eyes hollow voids. His mouth twitched into a smile that wasn't his. The veins across his neck and chest pulsed with shadow, glowing faintly with every movement. Emily's voice cracked. No, it's not you. You sealed it. You're gone. You. The thing that wore his face tilted its head. When it spoke, it was Steve's voice, but layered, broken, filled with the whispers of thousands. You held on too long, Emily. You gave it enough to follow. Her body went cold. The breach was closed, but something had slipped through. Not all of it. Not the vast horror that lay beyond, but a piece. A fragment. And it had taken him. Emily stumbled backward until her spine hit the wall. Her shaking fingers tightened around the dead shard of mirror. It was useless now, no glow, no power. But it was all she had. The thing smiled wider. Its teeth gleamed sharp and endless, stretching far beyond human. Don't run. Not this time. You belong here with me. Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. Tears blurred her vision, but anger pushed through her terror. You're not him. You'll never be him. The thing's grin twisted. I'm better. I'm forever. It stepped closer, its shadow stretching unnaturally across the floor. Emily pressed herself tighter against the wall, every instinct screaming to run. But she knew the truth now. She couldn't run forever. If she didn't finish this, it wouldn't just take her. It would spread. Through the town. Through the world. And Steve's sacrifice would mean nothing. With shaking hands, Emily lifted the useless shard like a knife and whispered, her voice breaking. Then I'll finish what he started. The shadow Steve launched. The voice in the black window. The creature lunged with a speed that made Emily's heart seize. One moment it was across the room. The next it was upon her. Steve's familiar frame twisted into something monstrous. His arms stretched unnaturally, fingers elongating into claws that scraped across the wooden floor, leaving burning trails of black rot in their wake. Emily dove to the side, the useless mirror shard clutched in her fist. She rolled across the warped boards, her ribs screaming in pain. The air was thick with sulfur, and every breath clawed at her lungs. The thing slammed into the wall where she had been, the wood splintering under its impossible strength. Dust rained down, the house groaning like it was alive and watching. Emily staggered to her feet, holding the shard like a dagger. "Steve!" she cried, though she knew it wasn't him anymore. "If any part of you is still in there, fight it. Don't let it use you." The thing straightened, tilting its head, its face twitching. For one flicker of a second, its expression softened, its black eyes clouding with something almost human. Almost. But then the whispers poured out of its mouth, hundreds of voices woven into one. He begged to stay. I let him. Emily's stomach dropped. That wasn't Steve. That was the creature talking through his corpse, puppeting his face, mocking her grief. Her fury boiled over her fear. She raised the shard high, rushing forward with a scream that ripped her throat raw. She slashed at the thing's arm. The shard scraped its skin and sparked. For the briefest heartbeat, the shard glowed again, a faint, desperate light. The creature recoiled with a hiss, black smoke spilling from the wound. Emily's breath caught. The shard still works. The thing's grin cracked into a snarl, its voice deeper, crueler. You can't kill me with glass. Maybe not, Emily growled, holding the shard steady. But I can kill what's wearing him. The creature lunged again, faster this time. Emily ducked low, swinging the shard upward. It tore across its chest, leaving another smoking wound. The smell of burning rot filled the air. The thing screeched, the voices inside it wailing in unison. The impact threw Emily back against the wall, her breath knocked from her lungs. The shard trembled in her hand, its glow pulsing brighter now. She realized with horror what it meant. The shard wasn't just a weapon. It was hungry too. It wanted to finish what it had started with the breach. The creature loomed over her, Steve's twisted face inches from hers. Its mouth opened wide, unhinging like a snake, teeth glistening endless in the dark. The whispers poured directly into her ears, her mind, her soul. Join him. Be with him. Forever. Emily screamed, lifting the shard with both hands, and drove it into the creature's chest. The glow erupted into searing light, flooding the room. The creature shrieked, its body convulsing violently. The voices fractured, splintering into cries of rage and pain. Its flesh rippled as shadows poured out of it, writhing like snakes torn from a nest. Emily held on, screaming with it, her palms blistering from the burning heat of the shard. Tears poured down her face as she shouted over the cacophony. "You can't have him! You can't have me!" The creature's black eyes flickered, and for one fleeting moment she saw Steve. Just Steve, his real eyes, tired and broken, looking at her with something like peace. "Thank you," he mouthed. Then the light consumed him. The body collapsed into ash, the whispers fading into silence. The shard shattered in Emily's hands, burning her skin, and fell in pieces across the floor. The house groaned one final time, boards cracking, walls splitting, the roof bowing inward. It wasn't just collapsing, it was dying. Emily stumbled to her knees, gasping, her body weak and trembling. Dust and ash swirled around her. For the first time since entering, the air was silent. Steve was gone, truly gone, and Emily was alone. The voice in the black window. The house screamed as it began to collapse around her. Rafters snapped like bones, floorboards buckled, and a storm of dust filled the air. Emily staggered to her feet, coughing, her chest burning. The remains of the shard lay scattered at her feet, glowing faintly before fading into nothing. She stumbled through the wreckage, dodging falling beams, her legs trembling with exhaustion. Every step felt like wading through water, but sheer terror pushed her forward. She couldn't die here. Not after everything. Not after Steve. The stairs had melted earlier into tar-like sludge, but now, as the house fell apart, the ground floor reappeared, fractured and unstable. Emily slid down what remained of the stairwell, landing hard, her palms scraping against jagged wood. The front door stood in front of her. For the first time since they entered, it was visible, the same broken frame, the same rusted hinges. But it stood open, swinging gently in the night air. Moonlight poured through it like salvation. Emily's heart hammered. She staggered forward, every muscle screaming, and threw herself through the doorway, just as the roof above gave way. The house collapsed behind her in a roar of splintering wood and shrieking nails. Dust and ash exploded outward in a choking cloud, and Emily stumbled into the overgrown yard, falling to her knees. Silence. The house was gone. Nothing remained but a smoldering heap of wood and stone. The infamous black window, the doorway, the whispers, all buried in rubble. Emily pressed her forehead to the cold earth, sobbing. She was alive. Somehow, against all odds, she was alive. But her relief lasted only moments. The night around her was too still. The forest, usually alive with crickets and owls, was silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The moon shone unnaturally bright, and the stars above twisted faintly, as if bending toward her. Emily's sobs faded. She lifted her head slowly, her body trembling. At the edge of the yard, where the shadows of the trees began, stood figures. Dozens of them, motionless, watching, her breath caught in her throat. They weren't human, not exactly. Their outlines were human-shaped, but their faces were smooth, featureless voids. Their bodies flickered faintly, as though made of smoke. One by one, their heads turned toward her in perfect unison. And then, from the silence of the night, a voice echoed, not from the figures, not from the forest, but from inside her own head. The door is never closed. Emily's stomach dropped. She scrambled backward on her hands and knees, her eyes locked on the figures. They didn't move closer. They only watched, waiting. The pile of rubble behind her shifted, wood cracking softly. Emily spun around just in time to see a single pane of glass glinting in the moonlight, half buried in the ashes of the house. A black window. Her scream tore through the silent night. The voice in the black window. Emily's scream hung in the air, but the forest didn't echo it back. The silence pressed against her ears like cotton, smothering every sound but her own ragged breathing. She crawled backward across the dirt, her eyes fixed on the shard of glass glinting in the moonlight. It wasn't large, just a broken pane, jagged on one side, smeared with soot from the rubble. Yet even in its stillness, it pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. The figures at the edge of the trees hadn't moved. Dozens of them, faceless and watching. The longer she looked, the more of them she saw. Not just in the tree line, but deeper in the woods, their faint outlines stacked like soldiers waiting in the dark. Her chest tightened. The door is never closed. The words pulsed in her skull, whispering beneath her thoughts. She shook her head violently, pressing her palms to her temples. No, no, I ended it. I ended it. But the black window, Shard disagreed. The faint glow inside it shifted, and for a moment, she swore she saw Steve's face ripple across the surface. Not screaming, not twisted, just looking at her. But when she blinked, it was gone, replaced with her own reflection. Only not her. Her reflection smiled. Emily scrambled to her feet, her legs weak and shaking. She stumbled into the yard, her eyes darting wildly. She had to get out of here, away from the rubble, away from the watching figures. She turned toward the road, where a car waited far beyond the crooked fence. The dirt crunched under her shoes, the sound too loud in the dead silence. She forced herself forward, refusing to look back. Every nerve screamed that if she turned around, she'd see something standing right behind her. At the fence, she stopped. The road stretched out under the moonlight, but it wasn't the same road she had driven hours earlier. The asphalt was cracked, vines curling across its surface. Street signs leaned, rusted, their words unreadable. And the silence, that suffocating silence, stretched across it like a blanket. Her throat tightened. This isn't my world anymore. She clutched her head, panic clawing at her mind. Had she sealed the breach, or fallen through it herself? A sound cut through her thoughts, soft, steady. Footsteps. Behind her. Emily froze. She didn't want to turn, but her body moved anyway, slow and trembling. The figures had moved. They were no longer at the tree line. They stood in the yard now, arranged in a half circle around the rubble. Closer, watching her, waiting, and one of them had a face. Kaitlyn. Her friend's hollow eyes and slack jaw stared back at her from the body of shadow. Black veins traced down her cheeks like rivers of tar. Her lips moved slowly, forming words Emily couldn't hear, but deep inside her skull, the meaning was clear. You never left. The black shard pulsed in the dirt. The faceless figures stepped forward in perfect unison. Emily turned and ran. The voice in the black window. Emily ran. Her lungs burned with every breath. Her legs screamed with exhaustion, but terror kept her moving. The cracked road stretched ahead, lit only by the pale, wrong-colored moon. The silence was no longer empty. It was filled with the phantom rhythm of footsteps, though she couldn't tell if they were hers or if something followed. The trees on either side of the road seemed closer now, their branches twisting downward like skeletal arms, reaching. Faces pressed faintly against the bark, mouths silently opening and closing. Every time she blinked, there were more of them, watching. Her shoes crunched on gravel, each sound too sharp in the smothering quiet. She wanted to scream, to break the silence, but some part of her knew, if she made a sound, they would answer. Her car. She just needed to reach her car. She remembered parking it at the curve just beyond the old house, headlights pointed toward town. She clung to the thought like a lifeline. But when she reached the bend, her heart nearly stopped. The car was there, or what was left of it. Rusted, broken, half swallowed by creeping vines that pulsed faintly with black veins. The tires had melted into the asphalt. The windshield was gone, and in its place, a pane of smooth, unbroken black glass gleamed in the moonlight. Emily staggered back, her breath hitching in her throat. The glass wasn't a mirror, not exactly, but she saw herself reflected in it anyway. And her reflection didn't mimic her movements. It smiled. Her knees nearly buckled. No, 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 no. The glass rippled, and her reflection leaned forward, pressing its hands against the inside surface. Behind it, dozens of faces swam, pressed together, writhing silently. Kaitlyn's eyes among them. Steve's too. Her heart shattered. Steve. The reflection's mouth open wide. Too wide. From it came a soundless scream, and in Emily's head, the voices began again, louder this time. The door is never closed. You never left. The trees behind her creaked. Emily spun, and her stomach lurched. The faceless figures had followed. They stood in the road, rows of them stretching into the distance, blocking the way back. Their heads turned toward her in unison, smooth faces glistening faintly in the moonlight. One of them stepped forward, a shape taller than the rest. Its body flickered like smoke, but its shadow was sharp, stretching long across the ground toward her. When it spoke, its voice came from everywhere at once, shaking the air, vibrating inside her chest. One by one, the car's black glass pulsed, glowing faintly, waiting. Emily realized then, with a wave of cold clarity, that the house had never been the prison. The house had only been the key. The world itself was the window now. Her hands trembled, useless without the shard. She had nothing left to fight with. Nothing but her own will. The figures began to move closer, their steps slow, synchronized, deliberate. Emily backed toward the ruined car, her eyes darting between the faceless horde and the rippling glass. For the first time since this nightmare began, she wasn't sure which was worse, the world outside or what waited behind the window. And as the figures reached the edge of the car's shadow, the reflection inside the glass whispered in her voice, "Come home." The voice in the black window. Emily's back pressed against the side of the ruined car, her palms flat against the cold metal. The black glass embedded in the windshield pulsed faintly, rippling like water, reflecting her face and dozens of others crowding behind it. Steve's hollow eyes, Kaitlyn's twisted mouth, all pressed close, begging or mocking, she couldn't tell which. The faceless figures closed in from the road, their synchronized footsteps crunching against the gravel. They didn't rush her. They didn't need to. Their slow, deliberate approach was worse, as if they already knew she had nowhere to run. Emily's chest heaved. Her heart slammed against her ribs so hard it hurt. Her voice came out cracked, broken. "What do you want from me?" The taller figure at the front of the horde stopped. Its shadow stretched impossibly long, cutting across the road and curling around her feet. Its faceless head tilted, and when it spoke, its voice rattled the marrow in her bones. "You were chosen, one by one. Now you." The black glass pulsed harder, glowing faintly from within. Emily turned toward it, and her breath caught. Her reflection was different now. No longer smiling, no longer mocking. It looked almost pleading. Its mouth moved, and though no sound reached her ears, the words appeared inside her skull like a whisper she couldn't ignore. "Step through." Her stomach twisted. Step through? Into that. Into whatever abyss waited on the other side. It was madness. It was suicide. And yet, she thought of Steve, of how he had been dragged in, how his last act had been sacrifice. She thought of Kaitlyn, her face pressed eternally against the glass. Her reflection's eyes filled with tears that mirrored her own. Was it showing her, warning her, or luring her? The faceless figures drew closer, their circle tightening. Their heads moved in eerie unison, tilting like puppets on strings. The taller one stepped forward again, its voice rolling like thunder. "You cannot run. You cannot close it. You can only belong." Emily's breath came fast and shallow. Her choices were shrinking by the second. If she stayed here, the horde would take her. If she stepped into the glass, she might join Steve, might be consumed like the others. But what if stepping through wasn't surrender? What if it was the only way to end it? Her reflection leaned closer against the glass, its lips forming one final phrase. "Finish it." Emily's hand trembled as she raised it, her fingertips hovering just above the smooth, pulsing surface of the black glass. The figures froze, as though waiting expectant. Her voice cracked into the silence, broken but resolute. "If this is the only way, then I'll finish it." And with that, Emily pressed her hand against the glass. It rippled under her touch, cold and alive, pulling her inward. The figures leaned forward as one, their faceless heads tilted, watching as the glass swallowed her arm, her shoulder, her chest. The last thing Emily heard before darkness claimed her was Steve's voice, faint, fractured, but undeniably his. "Emily," and then she was gone. Do you want me to continue with part 19? where Emily discovers what lies inside the window and whether she can truly end it from within. Вы сказали. 19. Chap сказал. Here is part 19, long, eerie, and surreal. The descent into the window's world. The voice in the black window. Part 19. The cold hit her first. Not the bite of winter air, but something deeper. A cold that sank straight into her bones, as if her blood had turned to ice. Emily gasped, but no breath came. Her lungs pulled at nothing, her chest tightening until she thought she would suffocate. Then she realized she wasn't breathing because she didn't need to. Not here. She opened her eyes. Darkness. Not the comforting dark of night, but an endless void stretching in every direction. She floated weightless, her body drifting as if suspended in water. Shapes moved in the distance, massive, indistinct shadows that twisted and coiled like smoke, sometimes taking the form of hands, sometimes faces, sometimes things her mind refused to name. And around her, whispering. It came from every direction, thousands of voices overlapping, some screaming, some sobbing, some laughing. Her head throbbed under the weight of it, and she clutched her ears, but the sound wasn't in her ears. It was inside her mind. She spun slowly in the void, and her stomach lurched. Faces surrounded her. Countless pale, hollow-eyed faces drifted in the dark, their mouths open in silent cries. They floated like lost souls in an ocean, their hands reaching toward her, their skin thin as paper. Kaitlyn's face was among them. Her friend's eyes found hers, pleading, her mouth forming words that Emily couldn't hear. And then Steve. His face emerged from the shifting mass, clearer than the rest. His eyes were tired pain, but still his. He drifted closer, his hand stretching toward her. Emily. His voice came, faint but real, carried through the endless whispers. Her throat closed. Tears burned her eyes. Steve. Oh my God, Steve. She reached for him, her fingers brushing his. For a heartbeat, warmth pulsed through her, the warmth of something human, something alive. But then his eyes darkened. His mouth twisted into that too-wide grin she had seen before. His voice dropped into a chorus of whispers. You belong here. Emily cried out, yanking her hand back, her body trembling. The faces closed in tighter, their hands clawing at her arms, her legs, pulling her downward into the void. She kicked and struggled, her screams swallowed by the endless dark. And then she saw it. Far below, deeper in the abyss, something vast stirred. Larger than mountains, older than time. A shape with countless hands and mouths, its hollow sockets burning faintly like distant stars. It was the source of the whispers, the thing behind the window. And it was waking. The faces dragged her down, closer and closer to it. The void trembled, the whispers growing louder until they were a deafening roar. Emily fought against their pull, but her strength was slipping, her body sinking into the endless dark. Her fingers brushed against something sharp, a shard. Somehow, impossibly, she still clutched a piece of the mirror. Its glow was faint, almost gone, but it was still there. Emily gritted her teeth, tears streaking her face. No, I won't be yours. Not now. Not ever. She raised the shard high, and as the faces clawed at her, she drove it into the void itself. The light flared, the whispers screamed, and the abyss began to crack. Do you want me to continue with part 20, where Emily unleashes the final confrontation inside the window and decides whether she lives or becomes part of it forever? Вы сказали. 20 million Akurin Jazub Bear Butarup. Chap сказал. Here is part 20, long, haunting, and written as a chilling conclusion to the story. The voice in the black window. Part 20, the last reflection. The shard's light spread like fire through the void. Cracks tore open across the endless dark, white lines splitting the abyss as though the world itself were glass. The whispers turned into screams, the countless voices writhing in agony. Faces melted into smoke, hands dissolved into ash. Emily clung to the shard, her body trembling, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. She felt herself falling, spinning through the void as it shattered around her. Below her, the vast, ancient shape convulsed. Its sockets burned brighter, its mouth stretched wide in fury. 1,000 hands reached upward, trying to hold the collapsing void together. But the cracks spread faster. Emily screamed as the light consumed everything. She was blinded, weightless, ripped apart, and pulled together all at once. For a moment, she thought she had died, that she had joined Steve, Kaitlyn, and all the others in endless silence. Then air, cold, sharp air filled her lungs. She gasped, choking, her body convulsing as she rolled on a solid ground. Dirt wet with dew. The smell of pine and earth filled her nose. She was outside. The house was gone. Not rubble this time, not ash. Just a patch of empty land, overgrown with weeds. No trace of the walls, no black window staring down at her. Emily pushed herself up on shaking arms, her body bruised and weak. The shard was gone. Nothing left but the scar in her palm where she had held it too tightly. For the first time in what felt like forever, the night was alive. Crickets sang in the grass. An owl hooted from the forest. The wind rustled through the trees. She was free, or so she thought. Emily staggered toward the road, every step heavy, her mind fogged with exhaustion. She reached the cracked pavement and looked up at the sky. The moon shone bright. The stars glittered. But then she froze. The stars weren't quite right. Some of them bent, just slightly, as though distorted behind glass. And as she stared, one of them blinked. Not twinkled. Blinked. Her breath caught in her throat. Her stomach dropped. Slowly, she turned her gaze toward the trees. At first, she saw nothing but shadows. But then, between the trunks, something shimmered faintly. Smooth. Reflective. A window. Not shattered, not glowing, just waiting. Emily's heart broke. Tears spilled down her face as she whispered into the night, her voice trembling. I never left, did I? The forest didn't answer. The night sang on. But in the distance, from that faint, waiting shimmer, came the softest whisper, a single phrase carried on the wind, just for her. One by one, Emily sank to her knees on the road, her body trembling, her sobs breaking into the quiet night. The curse was not broken. The window would never close. And she knew, with a horror deeper than death, that it was only a matter of time before someone else found it. The end.